Today on Dodson's Corner, we're going to be recapping how all the fighters performed on UFC 306, Noche, Riyadh season, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be seeing if they over-delivered, under-delivered, or properly delivered. And we're going to see how our picks did. Let's go. All right, let's start off. Early prelim, there's only one of them. Raul Rosas Jr. Dylan, what do you think?
It was the only fight I actually got to watch live, and it was a snooze fest. It was just Raul Rosas Jr. over on his back, controlling the fight. It was lame. Like Raul Rosas Jr. I know you mentioned this in yesterday's video, talking about how he wants to retire by 25 and become champion, but I'm not seeing aspects of his game that are going to allow him to become champion and retire by the age of 25. I just don't see him being active enough on the ground, and I just don't see enough out of his striking yet. He's got a long way to come if he wants to become champion.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's not like he's some sensational talent. Mm-hmm. He's really good at grappling, and he's clearly dominant on the ground. But if you face anyone like an Umar Nurmagomedov, Umar is going to be more dominant on the ground, better wrestling. Right now, he's better built as well. So I just don't see him retiring at 25 as a champ or double champ like he wants to.
Yeah, he's not some generational talent. He's just a rare 19-year-old in the UFC with hype behind him.
And who knows, maybe in the future he does progress really fast. But right now, I'm not seeing a fast enough progression to have him become champ in like 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would say he under-delivered.
100%.
Next up, we got Edgar Shirez versus Joshua Van. I believe this received a performance bonus or fight of the night, one of the two.
Yeah.
And this was an absolute war. I don't think anyone was expecting this, kind of, in my opinion, two no-names on the card. You can say you know them and you're a big fan, but I feel like for the majority of the audience, people were not expecting this to deliver how it did.
And that's going to be a common theme amongst most of the fights except for the two headliners, that overperforming amazing fights to relative low expectations.
Yeah, the second round of this fight, like I watched it just the other day, like as a replay, because we were at an event, and so we didn't get to watch it live, unfortunately. But dude, just the amount of damage that they could take and the back and forth, and then the spinning back fist to come back was unreal.
It was an absolute banger. And like a lot of these people got to put their names on the map, and like Dana's gonna be like, oh, I want this guy on the early prelims of these big cards. Like I bet you will see some of these guys fighting on 311, 312 whenever McGregor or Islam fights, because there's going to be extra eyes on those cards, and Dana wants people to watch these exciting up-and-comers or exciting prospects.
Or even UFC 309 and 310 if they need good prelims to kind of help balance out the lackluster main card. Because we're going to talk about UFC 309 and rebook that.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of focus on, is getting these exciting up-and-coming prospects on these cards, which are going to have lots of eyes. People are going to watch 309 for John Jones as his potential retirement, and Stipe, the heavyweight goat, who's going to be retiring. There's going to be eyes there. Let's get these guys who are exciting to can really spice up these early prelims.
Let's move on. We got Jarugui versus Souza, and it was a round 1 submission for Souza. I would say for a women's MMA fight, it delivered. Like, we're never expecting a finish really in WMMA. So for them to get a first round submission, I mean, hats off to him.
Yeah, it's really all.
Next up, we got Manuel Torres versus Ignacio Bahamondes. This one could have gone either way. I know a lot of people did bet on Bahamondes to win, which he did, and he KO'd him. But Manuel Torres is no slouch.
No, 100% not. Like, one of the people on these like prelims that actually has a little bit of name value, not some unknown Mexican independent fighter, basically.
So Bahamondes got the first round KO, and it looked good. It was pretty dominant. He actually caught him with the same thing twice. And so Manuel Torres didn't make the right adjustments. That's about it. I would say this fight properly delivered, if not a little bit over delivered, because for the striking of Bahamondes, I was expecting a finish from him, and especially with being a training partner to Bilal Muhammad, world champion welterweight, extremely dominant, mimicking Leon Edwards' style.
Yeah.
But he can get a finish, so he's better than Leon Edwards.
You heard it here now.
Bahamondes. Yeah, you never know if he could be, world title potential, but solid fight for Bahamondes. Moving on, this was, it was unbelievable. On Twitter, the cut that you saw.
She looked like Harvey Dent. Like, it was like Two Faces. Like, it was disgusting.
her head was just like being ripped open. Do you see the stitches? They went all the way down.
Yeah, it was vile.
So this fight definitely over delivered. Again, WMMA, it's hard for them to get traction or like kind of a viral moment because there's not many KOs. But this to be maybe the worst cut in UFC history, probably, right?
Up there, at least in recent memory.
And also it was from a head clash mainly, which is a little bit unfortunate. It's just a freak accident, really. But over delivered. I think Norma Dumont looked very solid. One more fight, and then I'd give her a title shot. Honestly,
that's fair. She's probably around 5 or 6 now in the rankings.
Yeah, well, I think she beat number 4 or something.
Yeah, she'll be in that top 5-ish range, and then one fight inside of that top 5, or who knows, maybe she gets just a title shot right away.
Yeah, it's so tough to say with those divisions. All right, let's move on to Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osborne. This fight did have quite a bit of hype due to the press conference.
Yeah, Ronaldo Lopez
Rodriguez, he carried.
Ronaldo Rodriguez.
He literally carried that press conference.
Dude, Ronaldo Rodriguez came in here, was super charismatic, and honestly kind of carried that press conference.
Yeah. Did you see the translations of what he was saying afterwards? Dude, he's unhinged. If Dana White could speak Spanish, that might have ended differently.
What do you mean? His translation is just what Sean Strickland says.
Yeah, that's actually fair. Yeah, I mean, this one delivered. I would say it delivered because there was so much hype behind it. This was one of the most hyped prelims on the card. Or no, it wasn't even a prelim.
No, this was the main card.
The main card. Yeah. I guess I'm just used to like no names being on that. Anyways, enough about that.
And I'm a little bit biased because this is the only fight I got right in my predictions.
Ooh.
I went 1 for 5.
That's brutal. And Rodriguez, he looked like he was out cold. In that first round, he got caught by Osborne and just like literally hit the ground and then just revived himself.
Undertaker moment.
Yeah. And then Osborne went for a triangle as well and didn't get the submission, and it was tight. So Rodriguez is a dog. Dana White's probably, the Mexican fighting spirit, all that stuff. Rodriguez has got it, and this fight definitely delivered. Moving up the card, Zellhuber versus Ribovic. Again, this was unreal. What a banger of a fight.
The third round.
That's
all you need to say. When you're getting TikTok edits, Instagram reel edits, I mean, they're the same thing, but of that third round of what Zellhuber was able to do, just sat there and ate it. He didn't want to give up. He wanted that fight. He did lose, came up short, but you got to commend that guy for the chin he had in that third round.
I saw a comment saying Zellhuber has a chin made of Max Holloway. It's like pretty much. But I think what was also impressive was that Ribovic didn't get tired. Like usually if you empty the gas tank with your arms, like throwing punches, you see them just lose their technicality. But you didn't see that at all with Ribovic.
No, he still looked good. Like he was just like pure striking for like a minute. Like it was like beyond UFC 5, like gas tank gone.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, honestly. Some people just have that ability to keep going and push through.
Yeah, they both had that like end of the third round, like really pushed to the finish, and it impressed. It was a definite overperformance. We both had Zellhuber. Unfortunately, he lost, but you can't be mad.
No, honestly, this kind of reminded me of like a Contender Series fight where they just both go at it so hard trying to prove themselves. And I will say the reffing on this card in total was very good. They did not stop the fights early. The only reffing that was a little bit sus was Herb Dean on the main event, but we'll get onto that.
Yeah,
I think there was maybe a pep talk in the room beforehand saying, if Merab is laying on top, you need to keep it moving. I'm not kidding. I think that happens.
Could have.
Yeah. And I think for the Sphere event, like it is important for people. There's a lot of eyes on this card, right? Biggest gate ever. A lot of people watching for the first time, like Dana White said. And if they're watching, they don't want to be seeing the refs stopping things early. Yeah. Right? You want to see wars.
You want to see someone die. You want to see Bryce Mitchell tweaking out.
And if they watch that fight, that's definitely something that could get them into the UFC, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, now time for my fight of the night.
My fight of the night.
I'm so happy for Diego Lopez, man.
As like I wanted Lopez to win, but I was like, I'm gonna go with my gut. Ortega, the experience. Lopez isn't ready. Lopez is legit.
I think we both had Lopez like at 303. We were like young kid hyped on the prospect. And, not sure how he'd perform against someone who's that high up the rankings. 13 all the way to number 3. That's a massive jump. We saw Umar did the same thing in bantamweight against Corey Sandhagen. But for a non-Dagestani fightor to do that, I think it's even more impressive. And his uppercuts are what impressed me the most. He has that like iconic against Sadiq Yusuf, like the pose that he has. That's like his kind of signature now.
Yeah, he's kind of like, there's not too many guys who are still using the uppercut like that. Like I think like maybe like Rob Whittaker uses the uppercut, but like Lopez's uppercut is one of the best uppercuts in the UFC by far.
Yeah, his power I think is becoming a little bit more known, and it still might be underrated.
Mm-hmm. I think pound for pound featherweight might be the most powerful division. Like you have so many guys with like KO power in like a bottom half division.
Yeah, you got Josh Emmett, you got Taporia, you got now Diego Lopez.
You got Yair.
Yeah.
You have Max now too is knocking people out. You got Volk. Like
that's featherweight stacked.
Yeah.
I love featherweight. Man. It's like just exciting enough where you get those KOs, but it's still so technical.
Yeah, and the fights go a little bit longer. We're not getting round 1 KOs every fight.
Definitely. So yeah, I would say that fight delivered, if not over-delivered, because I think for us, we were expecting Ortega to maybe bring it to the ground, jiu-jitsu, get a submission, or just a decision. But the fact that Diego Lopez got 2 or 3 moments where he was almost finishing the Brian Ortega, I'd say that's an over-delivering.
Oh, 100%. Like the way that, and it was from the start, it was 20 seconds in and Ortega was like toast.
Yeah, that was exciting.
I remember we were at the festival and Lucas is like scrolling on Twitter live updates and it's like, Ortega's down. He's down. Look at this. Ortega's knocked down, freaking out.
It's playing on 1:44 p.m. on Twitter.
It was so grainy.
No service. It was brutal. All right, moving up the card, Grasso versus Shevchenko. This was bust of the night, as we would say. I got this pick right. I picked Shevchenko. I didn't expect her to be this dominant. This was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it was boring, but she was dominant.
Especially when these two fighters have fought each other. This was their 3rd time. Like, you think you would know how to game plan for this fight. You think you would be ready. You wouldn't get 45 or 50-45.
Do you think that first Alexo Grasso fight was maybe a little bit of a fluke then? Because let's be real. Shevchenko won the 2nd fight, and she dominated the 3rd fight.
I don't know. You're the one who says that no flukes inside the UFC. Unless it's like some sort of like slip or freak accident, but
like the Sean O'Malley against Cheeto Vera, that would
that's
be
a fluke. And I think Sean made up for that, but like, I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, I think the matchups are going to be interesting. Shevchenko was champion for quite a long time and she was dominant, and now she's champion again. There's no way that they do a Grasso rematch because that's 4 fights and no one wants to see that.
No one wants to see that. I think we'll see probably Shevchenko. She might have like 1 defense, and then in an ideal world, she'd be around 37 at that point. You have an up-and-comer come and take that title.
Or maybe retirement. Maybe she's that belt was her goal for so long, and then she retires.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that. Then you get Grasso versus a contender for the title again.
Yeah, but the thing is that division is so old. Like, what are you going to have, Grasso versus Rose?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the rankings, honestly. I don't know WMMA. Okay, last and maybe least, we got Sean O'Malley main event versus Merab Dvalishvili. This was another under-delivering performance. I've seen a lot of comments both ways. I've seen a lot of people saying, how can you call Merab boring? Like, look at these moments in the fight. And you take 4 moments from a 25-minute fight of him doing takedowns. In my opinion, for the average fan, this is not going to be a fight that they're interested in. And it could have gone completely differently. O'Malley could have picked him off with a shot that KO'd his lights in one shot. Like, it could have been a 1-shot KO, but it wasn't. And so now we have to deal with the consequences of Merab laying on top of him. Tried 2 submission attempts that I can remember, maybe 1. I know I watched 1 in the 2nd round, and then signal was spotty after that. But overall, for me watching as just kind of a casual fan, it's not exciting to watch someone who doesn't go for submission attempts. It's exciting to watch someone like Diego Lopez on the ground because he always tries to finish.
Yeah, they're trying to finish that fight. Merab has no desire to finish that fight. And I think people talk about Merab like, oh, he's not that bad. The only moments you're seeing from Merab's perspective from that fight was like him kissing Sean's back or him doing those little taunts. None of it had to do with his fighting. None of it had to do with the in-ring stuff. It was all these stupid taunts that he was doing because, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the only way he can get the crowd hyped up. It's not from his finishing. He has less submission wins than Sean O'Malley. He has 1 submission win. Sean O'Malley has 2. He has the lowest finishing rate out of the current UFC champions. Guess what percentage?
18%.
9.
Ooh.
9% in the UFC of a finish rate. That is awful.
Yeah, Umar versus Merab's coming up real quick. That fight's getting fast tracked.
Yeah.
Not like you have to do anything. Neither of them have any damage. I saw Sean O'Malley on his podcast. It's been like 2 or 3 days now. He looks fine. Doesn't have a scratch on his face.
Yeah, I think he's taking the loss a little bit better than I expected, which, I mean, fair play to him.
And I think it shows his maturity. Like, people think about him, like I always talk about, they think of him as like a kid still. Like, he's mature. He's like, Merab was the better guy that night. Sean could consider moving up to featherweight. I think
a Max BMF fight, if Max loses, how sick would that be?
That would be sick. But I think that Sean might just be a little bit too big for bantamweight. Like we saw at the weigh-ins, like Sean did not look good. Like the way that he could barely move, could barely talk, he couldn't even shake Merab's hand. He looked so ill. And I think that he hasn't had issues with cutting in the past, but maybe he tried to push it a little bit further this time, get a little bit more of an advantage in this fight, especially with it being wrestling. He was expecting a wrestling-based fight. So, but yeah, he looked weak pre-fight and under-delivered. He couldn't get that one strike that he needed.
He looked really flat in the fight. That's really all there is to it. And the cornering of Tim Welch was awful. The cornering of Tim Welch was so bad. Not just because he's trying to do that thing with Merab where he yells at him. I don't really have a problem with that. I think if you're a fighter in the cage, you should be focused on your fight. But I do have a problem with Tim Welch showing no urgency in the 5th round.
Yeah.
You need a finish or a 10-8 round, which is not going to come against Merab. So you need a finish to win. And you're telling your fighter, okay, you just have to make it through round 5. Like, how does that make any sense at all? And obviously, like, I'm not a corner person. I don't, I know nothing about coaching. But to me, that feels like they're just trying to survive.
Yeah, if you told Sean he had to go, I think he had another level he could have brought in that 5th round.
And Darnell texted me and said he looked timid almost. Sean was almost scared to get memed on like Cejudo did. Because the last thing Sean wants as a social media personality is for pictures to be going around of him getting picked up by Merab.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we have seen how many times we've seen Bilal dropping Leon on his head.
That was funny. So yeah, it underdelivered. Overall, a good card with the last 2 fights just being a bit of a letdown. And that's the gamble you take.
I think it's tough. Like, you have such a good undercard and early even on the main card. But then when you have 2 just absolutely boring fights at the top, it just like, it sours your taste, like it's going great and it's got a crap aftertaste kind of thing.
All right, let us know what you guys thought about UFC 306 Sphere, and make sure you subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subs by UFC 307. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.
See ya.